practices, we'll cover the 3 infections: the yeast infection, the urinary tract infections, UTI, and bacterial vaginosis. So sexual practice number 1 is oral sex. Oral sex is very sensitive. I'm sure and 100% sure that every woman loves oral sex. Maybe 1 or 2 or 1% of women do not engage or they don't like oral sex at all or totally. But the biggest percentage, 99% of women, do love it because it is a bit pleasurable. So what's up guys? Welcome. It's been a while since the last time I did a health related video, and today is that day that I want us to talk about health matters. You know, this channel, I do everything. So I do diverse content, as you all know. So in today's video or today's episode, I want us to talk about health related issues. So I've been thinking on a scenario whereby I've been so observant when it comes to these female related infections, the yeast infections, urinary tract infections, UTIs, bacterial vaginosis, and trichomoniasis vaginalis. And I've just thought about it and I decided to do an episode on it, because sometimes when I do my lives on TikTok, it's not always so easy to get into so much of details, because there are so many questions when you do a live. There are so many questions, different questions coming in, and everyone is expecting that you will answer their questions. So going into so much of details about these 3 or 4 common infections in women becomes a bit trickier. So in this video, that is what I will be talking about. So what you need to know is that these 3 infections are related. I call them siblings. They are related. That is yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis, urinary tract infections. I'll not go much into trichomoniasis vaginalis or TV, because it is more of a sexually transmitted infection. But yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis (BV), and urinary tract infections, we all know they are not sexually transmitted. But it doesn't mean, of course, there are some people who complain that they get these infections after sex. It is not that these infections are sexually transmitted. It is only that the sexual activity keep on triggering these infections, depending on how or what practices you engage in during intercourse. So I'll combine the 3 infections. I will be discussing about the 3 infections. So to make it much more easier for you to understand, I'll categorize the practices that keep on bringing these infections to you, or the practices that make these infections to keep on recurring, because it doesn't mean the moment you treat the first urinary tract infection or the first yeast infection or the first bacterial vaginosis that you are done completely or you're well permanently. It doesn't happen like that, because these infections can always come back. So it doesn't matter what treatment you have been on. The thing is, these infections can come back anytime. Even when you're still on treatment, you can have another infection on top of it. For example, you could be on treatment with yeast infection, but still, during the course of that treatment, you get a urinary tract infection or bacterial vaginosis. It do happen. So I want us to talk about the practices that keep on bringing these infections to you every now and then. And actually, the funniest thing, or funny enough, is that these practices are things that you cannot avoid. They are so inevitable because you have to do them daily. But the problem is how you do them. You have to meet certain criteria or standards of doing whatever you do every day, so that you don't get these infections. Okay, so I'll categorize or divide the practices into 2. 1, sexual practices, and 2, hygiene practices. These 2 things are so inevitable. If you're married, if you have a partner, or if you're in a relationship, sex and sexual activity is part of the relationship. So that is so inevitable. You must have intercourse if you're sexually active or if you have a partner. You know, that is something that you cannot avoid. When it comes to hygiene, you have to do a cleanup. You have to take a shower, you have to change on panties, you have to dress up on panties, you know. These are things that are so inevitable. Huh? But doing these things can keep on bringing you recurrent infections. Okay, so we'll start with sexual practices. Sexual practices, and these sexual practices will cover the 3 infections: the yeast infection, the urinary tract infections, UTI, and bacterial vaginosis. So sexual practice number 1 is oral sex. Oral sex is very sensitive. I'm sure and 100% sure that everyone loves oral sex. Maybe 1 or 2 or 1% of women do not engage, or they don't like oral sex at all or totally. But the biggest percentage, 99% of women, do love it because it is a bit pleasurable, because of of the highly sensitive nerve fibers. When they get more excited when the tongue is involved. The tongue is involved, because also when it comes to the tongue, it is highly supplied or rich in supply of highly sensitive nerve endings or nerve fibers. The same case applies to down there, the vulva, the clitoris, and everything around that. So this is why the oral sex becomes so much pleasurable, and it's okay. It's okay to have it, but the thing is, you have to practice safe oral sex. That is why I'm here, not to tell you to stop, but to tell you how to do it safely. Okay, so before you engage in any oral sex, you have to make sure that you, as a lady, you have taken an initiative of brushing your mouth, and also make sure that your partner does the same. And you have to be careful, because after all, you're the one who catch the infection, not him. For him, if you tell him you need some oral sex, he'll just go down on you. He doesn't care, or he doesn't know. Let me just say that he'll just go down, and he'll not know that just going down on you is enough to give you any of these infections. Because it depends on what is being introduced into your vagina. Okay? Whatever is being introduced from his mouth into your vagina is also will determine the type of infection that you get. So you can get, just getting down on you can alter or can change or can affect or have an effect on your vaginal pH. And the moment the pH is messed up or is altered, definitely you're getting yeast infection. And it also depends on, will he be introducing new bacteria into your vagina? If he does, then you're likely to get urinary tract infections, UTI, or you can get bacterial vaginosis. So oral sex must be practiced safely. Everyone should brush their mouth before you go on each other, okay? So that is practice number 1 about sexual practices. The other practice is about lubrication. Lubrication is very sensitive. I'm very sure that most of you have been in a situation whereby you feel now, after being aroused for some minutes, you're now started becoming so dry and it feels so uncomfortable. Sometimes you feel itchy and it feels like you're burning. And at some point you realize that you're dry, and because you really wanted to feel the beauty of it or the pleasure of the activity that you're engaging in, then you had to look for a solution to that. So you ended up introducing saliva, yours or his. You ended up going for some jelly, some body lotions, some creams, just to have it lubricated so that you can continue with the sexual activity, right? I'm sure you have done that, and that is wrong. The moment you use these lubricants, or body lotions, jellies, creams as lubricants, remember some of these products are made to, with some ingredients that are only safe for external use only, and maybe on your skin, but not to act or to be used on any mucous membrane. So the moment you use these lotions or creams with unhealthy or unfriendly ingredients on your V, then you're likely to mess up. You're likely to mess up with your pH. Then that one will bring you yeast infections. It is also likely to mess up with your vaginal normal flora or healthy bacteria that prevents you from getting infections. The moment you mess up with the normal flora, it may decide to multiply, and now you get an excess of the normal flora in your vagina. You end up getting bacterial vaginosis. Some of these ingredients are not safe. They may introduce some things that, or some components or compounds that will bring you up urinary tract infections. You understand that? So that is why I'm insisting about the practices. Some of these things you have never noticed or realized that they can bring you infections. That is why I'm doing this episode, so that you understand what you've been doing wrong. So far, I know you've highlighted one mistake that you've been doing so far. Okay, so that is about lubricant. You have talked about oral sex. Okay, so still on the sexual activity, I didn't mention about the saliva. I had to say this, that saliva is not a lubricant. Saliva is a digestive juice. So the moment you use saliva as a lubricant, you're introducing new bacteria into your vagina. Remember, the mouth, or your oral space or cavity has healthy bacteria that protects or prevents your mouth from getting infections. The moment you move any healthy bacteria from the original place, you take it to another new place, then that bacteria in the new place will become a foreign bacteria, and it will bring up infections. And also remember that saliva is a digestive juice. It has digestive enzymes. They're likely to mess up with your pH or your normal flora, and you end up getting infections. So that is about sexual practices. There is also the issue of masturbation. I'm 100% sure that 99% of women are engaging in this. I don't know where the problem is. I don't know what's up with men. I don't know if men are scarce or what is happening, because most women have shifted to masturbation. Masturbation is good because it helps you realize who you are. It helps you know much more about your body, which is okay. But if you have to do it, you have to make sure that you do it safely, so that you don't introduce infections to yourself, or you don't bring yourself infections. So you have to do or practice safe masturbation. But also remember that masturbation done in excess is harmful to you. It will bring you long-term complications to both men and women. To both men and women. Don't just think that masturbation affects just men. It also affects women. We'll go into some of these details about maybe some possible complications or expected long-term complications after a long period of time practicing masturbation. So masturbation is good because it helps you know the most sensitive parts of a woman, or the deep erogenous zones, that will help you. When it comes to sexual activity, it should be a two-way. If there are so many women who are complaining about not being able to get an orgasm. So to get an orgasm, you have to make sure that you're free with your partner, so that he can help you to get climax or to get your orgasm. If he doesn't help you, then it will be so hard for you to get an orgasm. And to get an orgasm, then he must know the right places to touch. So that is why I'm saying that masturbation is good, because it will help you know the most sensitive parts, so that you tell him, this is how I love it done, this is where I love being touched, this is how I feel when I'm touched around this place. You will know much more about your body, so it will be helpful. But you have to make sure that if you're practicing masturbation, then it must be safe one, so that you don't get these recurrent infections. So if it is masturbation, different people use different things to masturbate, and whatever you have to use to masturbate, you have to make sure it is sterile or clean, so that it doesn't introduce new bacteria or new things into your vagina, and you end up getting these recurrent infections. These are things that you do, and you don't even realize that they can be harmful to you or can affect your health, your vaginal health. So for those who use their fingers to masturbate, whatever way you do it, but for those who use fingers, make sure that you practice hand washing first, or you wash your hands nicely. Don't use those hand rubs, don't use sanitizers. You sanitize your hands, then you start masturbating using your fingers. You'll be introducing, again, detergents and perfumes and chemicals from the sanitizer that will affect the health of your vagina. So make sure you hand wash or wash your hands using plain bar soap with running water. Just plain bar soap. And then make sure that you dry your hands and don't apply any lotion on your hands before you start masturbating. Yeah? So you just dry your fingers or your hands nicely, then you can proceed. But make sure before you do that also, you have taken a shower. Okay? That is practicing safe masturbation. For those who use funny stuff, because people use different things, and I'm not ashamed of mentioning some. There are some who use the cucumbers. It is okay to use it, but remember, where is this cucumber coming from? You got it from the market. So to make it safe, make sure you clean it first before you insert it. But the idea is, if it is possible to stop introducing funny objects inside or in your vagina, it is a bit better. But if you cannot control yourself, or you have to, then you have to make sure that whatever you use to give yourself pleasure, then you have to make sure that it's clean or it is sterile. So if it is a cucumber, then make sure that that cucumber is clean. You can get yourself a condom, you condomize that cucumber, then you can proceed and have fun as much as you want. Okay? If you use bananas, whatever you use, make sure it is clean. And if it is a hard object, you can make sure you have cleaned it up. Then maybe you can condomize it, then you have your fun. But it have to be safe, because I'm not here to tell you to stop. It is a decision. Masturbation is a decision. If you decide to stop, you can stop. If you get addicted, then stopping will be a problem. And I'm 100% sure, because I've had people telling me this, that every time you masturbate after you're done, then you start regretting. Yeah? People masturbate using different things. So point is, if you have to practice masturbation, then it must be safe masturbation. Don't mess up. Don't mess up. So maybe to mention just a few complications expected, cutting across from men to women, or from women to men, either way. So these are some of the complications that you expect that will happen. Maybe, let's say, what will happen maybe in a few years' time. Then you'll be wondering, what happened to me? I never used to be like this, but right now I'm like this. So why? It is because of long-term complications of masturbation. So complication number one, I'll just briefly touch on them. So complication number one is what we call desensitization. Desensitization is that state whereby you no longer have that excitement that comes along with being intimate with the opposite sex. So, and you're not able to achieve your orgasm after being intimate with that opposite sex person, because you've been so used to masturbation. You've been using different objects, you've been using sex toys, the gadgets, and then these things are not, if for example you use a dildo, this is a plastic charged with electric currents. So that activity of the electric currents excites you, So this is a plastic stuff. It is a plastic that does not have, it is not even supplied with nerves. So it is just like rubbing a rough surface. So that dildo will desensitize you because it doesn't have any nerves. So you don't, for example, if it's a male sexual organ and the female sexual organs, they are richly supplied with these highly sensitive nerve endings of fiber. So that is what brings about the excitement from both sides. But this time you're rubbing yourself using that plastic, so it doesn't have nerves. So that means the excitement is just one way. So you realize with time, if you get intimate with a man, then you'll not be able to get an orgasm. You'll not be able to achieve or to get to climax until you get to masturbate. You have to masturbate. So that means after getting intimate with your person or your partner, then you have to pretend. You have to fake orgasm, you have to fake moans, so that when he gets his, then you find a way of sorting yours. So just leave him maybe from the side, the scene of crime. You leave him there, then maybe you go to the washroom, then you're pretending you're going to maybe do some wash up or clean up, then you just do masturbation quick, fast, and you achieve your orgasm. That is desensitization. So desensitization is a long-term complication of masturbation. It affects both men and women. So you cannot get an orgasm until you masturbate. Okay, that is an expected complication of masturbation. Okay, other than that, there is what we call female erectile dysfunction. It is there in women. So how does this happen? Huh? Because you're so used to masturbation, it will come a time that you have no feelings. You have no feelings at all. You don't have the desires to have intercourse. That is female erectile dysfunction. Huh? So you don't get aroused. It is also what we call female arousal disorder. Like, you cannot get aroused until you watch maybe something, then you sort yourself. That is female erectile dysfunction. It is real. It is real. Huh? It can also happen. So some of the things that can tell you, or symptoms of this female erectile dysfunction, is among, the moment you get intimate, you start being intimate with your partner, or during the act, you realize that you get so turned off. Huh? You get turned off. You are really excited. Initially, you were excited and you are into it, but again, somehow you lost the desire to continue. So nothing happens. When that happens, when the arousal goes and the excitement is no longer there, then you start experiencing dryness. Huh? You become dry. You get turned off. You're just there. You get so uncomfortable, and somehow becomes painful, irritable, start getting the burning sensation and all that. Huh? So female erectile dysfunction, there is also premature orgasms in women. Premature orgasm may sound like it's a good idea, because after all, the goal or the objective or the reason why you want to be intimate is to have that pleasure of getting an orgasm. So premature orgasm happens in this way. So just from the excitement of having a man gets you an orgasm, and before you get into the real act, you are done and you're turned off, you cannot continue. So those are some of the complications, among many others. From the male side, you also expect things like curving of the male sexual organ. It curves. It curves in a way that you cannot even engage in the act. Some are, sometimes you just find it is so normal to have a curved one, but when you do masturbate for long, it becomes so excess, such that it is so curvy in a way that you have troubles when it comes to penetration. So, curved one. There is also premature ejaculation. You ejaculate so fast, then you get baptized. 2 seconds man, 2 minutes man, you get that baptismal name from not being able to last for long. That is also what we call the erectile dysfunction in men. You know about it. A man cannot get his organ erect. If he gets it, it is weak. He cannot penetrate. If still he gets it, he's likely to lose it during the act. Understand that? So those are some of the symptoms of erectile dysfunction. And also, I remember I mentioned about desensitization. A man cannot get an orgasm, so he has to be on you like for 3 hours. When it is too long, then it is not sweet. You know that, ladies. Ladies know that. When you overdo it, then it becomes something else. So he cannot get an orgasm or he cannot ejaculate until he masturbates. That is a complication. So that was just a by the way. So we are still talking about sexual practices that will give you recurrent yeast infection, UTIs, or bacterial vaginosis. So I've said, I didn't mention about the sexual or the sex toys that most people have. So if you have a sex toy, to make it safe for your masturbation, then you have to make sure that those sex toys are sterilized after use and before use. So then you have to make sure that you have like 4 balls of different stuff. So like 4 balls to do decontamination or clean up after use. So how are you supposed to do it? After you're done with your masturbation, then you get that dildo, then you have 4 balls. The first ball should contain clean water. The second one should have sodium hypochlorite, or what you call jig. The next one should be with soapy water, and then the last one should be plain water. So how do you do the decontamination process, or how do you go about decontaminating the sex toys? So after use, you make sure you clean first with plain water, so that if there is any cum that is on the dildo, you'll be able to clean it up. Then from that, you soak in that jig for about 15 to 20 minutes. After that, you clean up with soapy water. Then after that, you rinse with plain water. Then you dry them up and you store them safely. Then before you use them next time, before you use them next time, you make sure that you rinse for dust and bacteria. Okay, so that is how to make it safe so that you don't get infections. It is quite demanding, right? So we are addressing recurrent yeast infection, bacterial vaginosis, and urinary tract infections. Okay, so those are sexual practices. I'm not sure if I've left any, but if I remember along the way, I'll still mention. So about hygiene practices. Hygiene plays a key role to most diseases and infections. So if your hygiene is poor, then be very sure that you keep on getting these recurrent infections. Poor hygiene, poor personal hygiene. Hygiene is key. So when it comes to hygiene, we'll talk about the panties and how you do cleanup, the sanitation, and all those things. So the first thing that you should always do, let's talk about sanitation. So when you want to visit the washroom, you should always wash your hands first before you visit that washroom. You clean your hands first. Don't ever touch yourself with dirty hands. So you clean your hands first, then you go to the washroom. Then after you're done with the washroom, still clean your hands again. Most people just do the other way, or just do hand washing after visiting the washrooms. So you should first wash your hands, then visit the washroom. After that, you wash again and you proceed. So that is about hygiene. Still, when it comes to hygiene, there is the issue of panties. Let's talk about these panties. So what about these panties? The type of panties that you put on and panty hygienes. Okay, panty hygiene. So the type of panties that you put on should never be silk, should never be nylon made. They should always be made of cotton. Okay, why? Because silk and nylon do not allow or give room for free circulation and aeration of air, which is very important because from the female anatomy you have thick thighs, and now your organ is somewhere hidden, so there is a lot of friction, a lot of heat being generated from that area. So definitely you sweat a lot. So if you sweat and you have the silk panty or the nylon made panty, that means you retain that moisture. Remember, sweat has some compounds, including ammonia, nitrogenous waste, and it also have some skin normal flora, the healthy bacteria from the skin. So if you retain that healthy bacteria from the skin through sweating, then you get an infection. So cotton panties are advisable, and they should never be tight. Avoid tight panties. If they are, how do you know a panty is tight? A panty is tight if you put on it, then you look at yourself on a dressing mirror, then you realize you can see the lips of your vein. If you can't see those lips, then that means that is a tight one. Of course, most women don't know the sizes of their panties. Why? Because every day you're gaining weight, you're losing weight. Okay? And the funniest thing is that when you're purchasing these panties, there is no one who gives you room or chance to fit in on one so that you can know the size that you really want to. So you just purchase it, and most people are so embarrassed about buying panties, purchasing panties. So you find someone buying and they're hiding themselves, don't want to be seen buying panties. So you buy a panty that will fit your waist, of course, but when it comes to down there, it was so tight for you. So avoid tight panties. So also you should also avoid the G-strings or whatever you call thongs. Those things are not good if you keep on getting recurrent infections. But of course, there are women who have been putting on those thongs for the longest time with no infections. But we are talking about recurrent yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, and UTIs. So if you have been having these recurrent infections, then you're one of those people who should avoid thongs at all cost. Why? The same reason why you go after you're done with maybe peeing and pooping, the same reason you always wipe from front to back. That is the same reason why you should not be putting on the thongs or the G-string. Why? Because a G-string or a thong is never stable. It will keep on sweeping from back to front as you walk, all on mobility of movement. So from back to front. So it will be carrying perianal content from the back, bringing in front or in your vagina, and you end up getting these infections. So G-strings, you should avoid them if you keep on getting recurrent infections. G-strings is a no. Okay. About cleaning up the panties, you should never use detergents to clean your panties. Don't use detergents. Don't use perfumed soap. Use plain bar soap. Apply nicely. Then you soak the panties. Then later on come and clean them up. Okay, clean them up after a few minutes of soaking them. Then after you clean them up, stop drying the panties in your bathroom. Avoid drying your panties in the bathroom. So what should you do? Sun dry the panties outside. Sun dry them. If it's over the winter, maybe you are in those cold countries, then you're very sure and 100% sure that because it is over the winter, those panties will not even dry. So that is why they should be made of cotton, so that you can even iron them. You iron them, then you store them, then don't put on them immediately. You give them some time. So the panties should be dried outside, or sun dried, or ironed. Okay, that is about the panties. There is so much to talk about panties, but I'll not go into so much of that because we still have a long way when it comes to discussion of this topic. Okay, that is about the panties. When it comes to the sanitation, if you're on your periods, you have to make sure that if you're on a pad, you have to make sure that you don't stay long without changing the pad. As soon as the pad soaks, you have to make sure that you remove it. Don't stay all day with a single pad. Okay, make sure that anytime the pad feels you have soaked the pad, go and change the pad. And if it is possible, you do clean up or you shower first before you put on the next. But maybe you're at your workplace, so it is not possible. Just make sure that you should also be having a towel or a toilet paper, a clean one. You wipe nicely, then you put on a pad. Don't just put on a pad. No, kids, you understand? So that is about the pads. So you should change the pads at least 3 times a day. Don't use one pad the whole day. Okay? Yes, that is about sanitation. Also, when it comes to cleaning up, you have to make sure that if you're on your periods, you have to clean nicely and make sure you don't leave any menstrual blood. If you do discharge, you have to make sure that you clean or take a shower regularly so that you clear the discharge so that it doesn't get stuck inside and it should bring about a bad smell. So you also know if you stay for long and you're on your periods and you don't take a shower, you're likely to get a very bad smell. You should also maintain short pubic hair. It is not advisable to clean shave or to wax. Just trim to a reasonable size, a size that will not have some effects when it comes to putting on or placing that pad, because when those small hairs get stuck on your pad, you know how painful it is, and you know the menstrual blood, if it happens to stick on the hairs, then still get a bad vaginal odor or a smell. So you have to make sure that the hairs are trimmed to a very small size or level. Okay, but don't wax, don't clean shave. Okay, so that is about sanitation. Also, still on sanitation, you have to make sure that the moment you go visit the washroom, the wiping technique should be right. So you should wipe from front to back, and you should not wipe from the back of your thighs. You should wipe from the front of your thighs in that downwards movement. Downwards, from front downwards, not from the back. Then you get to the front, then you wipe from front to backwards. That technique is wrong. It is likely that when you're getting to wipe from front backwards through the other way that I've just mentioned, maybe from the back of your thighs, then there is a likelihood that getting back from the back of your thighs, you're likely to, whatever you're using to wipe is likely to get into contact first with the perianal region before you get to your vagina, and you carry with you the perianal contents, including the E. coli, and you get an infection from that. Okay, that is about sanitation. I think I will continue from that in the next episode. So if you've learned, make sure that you leave a comment on this video, like the video, share the video with your friends. Also, they should learn as you have learned. And if you have not subscribed, make sure that you hit the subscription button, and I would really appreciate your support.